Hello and welcome to FedBiz 5, your quick dive into all things government contracting. I'm Sam Fields, and today we're talking about something a lot of capable contractors quietly struggle with, even if they don't say it out loud. If I'm doing good work, why do I still feel invisible to buyers? Here's the hard truth up front. If you feel invisible to government buyers, you probably are invisible. And in 2026, invisible companies do not win government contracts. That's not drama. That's just how modern market research works now. Yes, contracting teams still use SAM.gov, SBA's small business search, and all the traditional tools. But before they ever respond to your email, accept a capability briefing, or put your name in a market research memo, they're doing something else. They're looking you up. They're Googling your company name. They're checking who you are on LinkedIn. And increasingly, they're doing it with AI tools that can summarize your public footprint in a couple of minutes. So in this episode, we're going to talk about LinkedIn for government contracting, what buyers are actually looking for, the most common visibility problems that scare them off, and some practical steps you can take to make sure you're findable, credible, and worth their time. Let's start with the new reality. Federal acquisition guidance still treats market research as a structured activity. Buyers are supposed to understand the requirement, scan the market, and review potential suppliers. SBA guidance still tells them to use small business search as part of that process. That hasn't changed. What has changed is the speed and the scope of that research. Now, a contracting officer or program manager can open an AI assistant or a modern search tool, type your company name or your capability area, and get a quick summary pulled from your website, your SAM and SBS profiles, and, very often, your LinkedIn presence. Your public footprint becomes part of your competitive position. And LinkedIn is a big piece of that footprint for one simple reason. It's buyer-friendly. A SAM record is great for eligibility. SBS is great for filters. But neither one tells your story quickly. Your LinkedIn profile does. In a few seconds, a buyer can see what you say you do, whether you look active and current, who leads the company, how much experience you show, and whether the words on your profile match what they're actually trying to buy. If your LinkedIn presence is outdated, vague, or half-empty, the buyer doesn't just think they should update their profile. What they often conclude is, this company might not be established or relevant enough to spend time on. So let's make that more concrete. There are 5 really common LinkedIn visibility problems that hold contractors back. First, your profile makes you look less experienced than you are. Maybe your About section is generic, your past roles don't mention outcomes, and there's no real proof of what you've done. On paper, you might be a 10 out of 10. On LinkedIn, you look like a 3. Second, buyers can't actually find you by what you do. You never mention your NAICS codes. You don't use the service phrases buyers search for, and your headline says something like CEO at ABC Company instead of Facilities Maintenance for Federal Installations or Cybersecurity Support for DoD programs. You're invisible to the exact searches that should surface you. Third, your value proposition is not obvious. If a contracting officer can't tell in the first 5 seconds who you serve, what you deliver, and where you fit in the ecosystem, they move on. They don't have time to decode vague branding language. Fourth, you're silent. You may be doing great work, but your activity feed is a ghost town. No posts, no comments, nothing that signals current and engaged. To a buyer, that can feel like a risk. And fifth, your networking momentum dies at your profile. Someone meets you at an industry day, gets your card, looks you up on LinkedIn, and finds a blank or inconsistent story. That warm interaction suddenly feels colder. The good news is, all of this is fixable. Let's talk about how. We'll start with your headline. Your headline is one of the most important pieces of real estate you have on LinkedIn. It travels with you in search results, in comments, and often shows up in external search results as well. Instead of just listing your title, think like a government buyer. You want 3 elements in there: your role, what you actually deliver, and a signal that you serve the government market. For example, instead of President at XYZ Solutions, something like President Facilities Maintenance and Base Operations Support for Federal Agencies, or BD Manager IT Modernization and Cybersecurity Support for DoD and Civilian Agencies, SDVOSB. You're telling people and search engines, this is the lane I play in. Next, your About section. Think of your About section like the top third of a capability statement, written for a buyer who is skimming on their phone. Open with one clear positioning sentence: who you help and what you help them do. Then, in a few short, punchy lines, explain your core capabilities using the actual phrases buyers use in solicitations. Things like janitorial and custodial services, cybersecurity operations support, medical logistics and distribution, not just innovative solutions. Then give them proof. Mention a few types of agencies you've served, the scale of work you've handled, or a result you're proud of. Shortened cycle times, on-time performance, successful inspections. And somewhere in that About section, actually write out your key NAICS codes, your socioeconomic statuses, and any major contract vehicles you're on. If someone asks an AI assistant, show me small WOSB firms that do NAICS 561210 facilities support, you want those words in your public story. Now let's talk about your experience section. Most people treat this like a resume. Buyers treat it like a credibility check. For your current role especially, don't just list responsibilities. Spell out outcomes. For example, instead of oversaw facility services contracts, you might say, lead facility maintenance and base operation support for multi-site federal clients, managing X locations and maintaining X% on-time performance. If you've delivered under specific contract types, task orders, IDIQs, BPAs, say that. If your work involves complex environments, secure facilities, remote locations, or 24/7 operations, that's important too. You're telling the buyer you understand the world they live in. Then there's the featured section. If you're not using the featured section on LinkedIn, you're making it harder for buyers to vet you quickly. Use it to surface 3 to 5 items that make their life easier. That might be a link to your capability statement on your website, a short case study or success story, a simple one-page core competencies graphic, or a short video that explains what you do for government customers. Think of it as pre-packaged evidence. When someone clicks on your profile, they shouldn't have to guess where to look for proof. Skills and keywords matter too. Behind the scenes, LinkedIn, and the tools that read it, are paying attention to the skills you list and the words you use. You want those aligned with how the government actually describes your work. Instead of generic skills like management and leadership, prioritize things like facilities maintenance, logistics management, cybersecurity operations, medical courier services, whatever actually describes what you sell. The closer your language matches the language in solicitations, the more likely it is that a buyer, or an AI tool, will connect the dots correctly. Now let's tackle the part that makes most people uncomfortable: posting. You do not need to become a thought leader. You do not need to post every day. But you do need a little bit of visible activity so you don't look dormant. A simple cadence might be one short post a week, or even every other week, plus a few thoughtful comments on other people's posts. What can you talk about? You can share a lesson learned on a project, a quick explanation of what rapid response means in your context, a recap of an industry day you just attended, or a small win you're proud of, without naming the agency or sharing anything sensitive. The goal is to sound like someone who is actively engaged in the space you claim to serve. And finally, social proof. For a government buyer, risk reduction is everything. Recommendations from customers, primes, or teaming partners can go a long way. Even 2 or 3 short recommendations that say, "We worked with this firm on X, they delivered Y, and we'd work with them again," sends a strong signal. Put all of this together, and you've turned your LinkedIn presence from a static business card into a living, credible snapshot of your company's role in the government market. If you want a practical starting point, here's a simple tune-up you can knock out in about an hour. Rewrite your headline so it reflects what you actually do for government customers. Rewrite your About section with clear positioning, capabilities, NAICS, and proof. Update your current role with outcomes. Add a capability statement or case study to your featured section, and add a handful of targeted skills that match your real services. Do that, and you will be significantly more discoverable and more convincing the next time a buyer or a prime partner looks you up. And remember, in 2026, visibility is not vanity. Visibility is a competitive advantage. Your SAM registration, your small business search profile, your capability statement, your website, and yes, your LinkedIn presence all work together. They're the composite picture an overworked contracting officer or program manager sees when they're deciding whose name goes on the market research list and whose email gets ignored. You don't control the budget. You don't control the timelines. But you do control how easy it is to find you, understand you, and trust you. And if you're listening to this and thinking, we are capable, but we are definitely not showing it, you're not alone, and you're not stuck. When you're ready for help tightening that external story, FedBiz Access is here to support you. For over 25 years, FedBiz Access has helped small and mid-sized businesses show up clearly and credibly in the government marketplace. From registrations and small business profiles to capability statements and targeted outreach that puts your story in front of the right buyers. If you'd like a second set of eyes on how your company looks from a buyer's perspective, you can call a FedBiz Specialist at 844-628-8914 and reference code GovConReady. That's GovConReady for 10% off any product or service. Thanks for listening to FedBiz 5. 5 minutes, countless opportunities. Until next time, stay visible, stay credible, and keep winning in government contracting.